Good morning. The time is 8 o'clock and it is February 16, 2023. It's a Thursday. Welcome to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, thanking you for joining us yet again this morning, once again this week, and thanking you for being subscribers of Cignal TV. And for your friends, families, kindly share our services with them, encourage them to subscribe. And of course, thank you to those of you who watch us via Facebook, via YouTube, and of course, those who watch our replays in the afternoon. And thank you also to PLDT for their home fiber optic internet. Okay, now just a point, just reminding you, before you go out of your house or before you start the day, take a minute, take a few seconds, or at least, while you go through the day, reminding yourself of all the good things you have in life, of all the things you have that many other people don't have. Okay, so an attitude of gratitude will always take away negativity. Okay, now let's go to our program for today. We will only have one topic and a special guest, but I am sure it will be an educational, very educational process and interview, because our guest for today, although he is a regular here on Agenda, he is considered one of the toughest, most widely read journalists, and we will be talking yet again about the new commissioner, the Customs Commissioner, and the Bureau of Customs, because today, let's find out exactly how corruption takes place at the Bureau of Customs, how do they go about it, because many people tend to think that corruption at the BOC only happens with importation and only at the pier at Manila and South and North Harbor. Pero marami pong pinanggagalingan at daungan na maraming kalokohan. But before all of that, let's start the day with our daily starter from the late U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And it goes, if you want your country to succeed, you should put your money on women. As you probably may not realize it, but aside from being a U.S. Supreme Court Justice, the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg was well known and left a legacy in the field of promoting women's rights, women's place in business, in governance, in leadership, and many other roles. So she said that if you want your country to succeed, you should put your money on your women, money on women. Well, all my money goes to one woman who is my wife, and she runs the finances. So I think I'm aligned with that. Okay, so let's now go to the front page of the Philippine Star. And today, February 16, 2023, Thursday, the headline goes, Big Guns Mulled for Philippine Coast Guard Vessels. Pinag-iisipan, pinag-uusapan, they're thinking about it, they're talking about it, placing big guns or maybe missile launchers or cannons on Philippine Coast Guard vessels in response to the laser attack, okay, military-grade laser attack of the Chinese Coast Guard on a Philippine Coast Guard vessel that was merely escorting a supply ship. Okay, so yan po, medyo that's the headline for the Philippine Star today. And that's going to be a cause of concern for all parties, because once we start arming those vessels, okay, we are escalating our terms of engagement. In any case, sa akin lang po, go back na lang in history and get reflector dishes. Diba? Parang yung Cignal dish pero puno ng salamin at i-reflect nyo na lang dun sa mga Coast Guard. Total, pag gayon tinamaan sila, siguradong bulag din sila. Okay? Because apparently, a Philippine Coast Guard personnel had temporary blindness because of that laser incident. At the top of the front page of the Philippine Star, Sugar Order number 6, hindi po Love Potion number 9, was released by the Sugar Regulatory Administration ordering 440,000 metric tons of sugar, all intended to cover the shortage or the supply so that there will be a buffer stock daw. Below that, we have the Department of Tourism, Philippines to welcome 139 cruise ships in 2023. Ayan po, that big photo there is a photo of the Silver Spirit that docked in Manila yesterday at the Eva Macapagal Super Terminal in Manila South Harbor and was welcomed by dancers and officials of the DOT and also of the City of Manila. Yan po, the tourists are expected to head to Ilocos, Romblon, and Coron in Palawan before heading to Hong Kong. Okay. So, that's good news, I think. If there are no medical concerns and all goes well. Okay. Meanwhile, China says the United States is using mutual defense treaty for intimidation. Okay, according to the Chinese spokesman and officials, the United States constantly raises the MDT or Mutual Defense Treaty with the Philippines to intimidate Beijing as it defended the aggressive action of its Coast Guard patrols against Filipino vessels in the West Philippine Sea. So, ayun. Okay, so, sige, tuloy nyo lang yan. Meanwhile, the Department of Foreign Affairs says, no Pinoy quake casualties in Syria. Kasi po may mga lumalabas na allegations, claims on Facebook na baka raw may namatay, etc. So the DFA is categorically reporting that there are still no reported casualties in Syria. Meanwhile, privatization proceeds eyed to fund Maharlika. Eto na naman, yung hindi makuha sa mga iba-ibang government institution, ngayon ibebenta na lang yung government institution to fund the Maharlika. Okay, proceeds from privatization may be used to finance the proposed Maharlika Investment Fund rather than putting state banks and central bank at risk, a public advocacy group said, okay? At the hearing of the Senate Committee on Banks, Financial Institutions, and Currencies yesterday, the Foundation for Economic Freedom maintained that it does not object to the creation of a developmental financial institution. But they argue that the Bangko Sentral and Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and government financial institutions such as Land Bank and DBP should be removed as funding sources. Tama yun, privatization. I-privatize nyo na yung Congress at Senado. Total, sila na rin naman ang nagsasabing, we have all the laws that we need. Okay. Meanwhile, center photo of the Philippine Star, we have, okay, students of the Leo Degario Victorino Elementary School in Barangay Tanyong, Marikina City, participating in earthquake and fire drills excuse me, conducted by the Department of Education and Bureau of Fire Protection yesterday. The drills were held following the powerful earthquake that claimed more than 40,000 lives in Turkey and Syria. Wag naman po sanang mangyari, but I have a feeling if something similar happened to Metro Manila, we are going to have a disaster and people will probably start going back to work from home mode. Anyway, social weather station, according to a survey recently conducted by the SWS or Social Weather Station, claims that 26% of Pinoys sometimes prefer authoritarianism. Only 60% said that they always prefer democracy over. Parang na-headline o na-highlight yung 26% pero yung 60% ginawang only. Ay, ewan ko sa imo. Okay? Senators hit plane for putting Philippine in bad light. Ano na naman to? Okay. Senators condemned yesterday the negative portrayal of the Philippines in the fictional movie Plane, which stars Gerard Butler as a commercial pilot whose plane crashes in Hulo and the survivors are held hostage by extremists. Okay? Ayan na po. So pumalag po yung mga senador, particularly si Robin Hood Padilla. And okay, last but not the least, we have a photo of Bureau of Internal Revenue Director Renato Molina preparing a public announcement in front of the BIR building in Intramuros, Manila. The BIR is encouraging the public to pay taxes early. Okay, so manawagan na tayo. We are appealing to company accountants, business accountants, and the likes. Tapusin na rin nyo naman yung tax form ng mga employee nyo ng maaga-aga para lahat naman kami makabayad ng maaga-aga. Okay? That is generally part of the problem. The receipts, tax forms, or payments to the BIR made on behalf of private individuals or katulad kong freelancer, ay sometimes yung iba dyan natatagalan last minute. Okay, so yan na po. Let's now transition. Do we go for a break or do we go straight to the program, Mr. Malyari? Okay, straight to the program. And so, therefore, let's introduce our regular, ang kinatatakutan, ginagalang, at maraming alam tungkol dito sa Bureau of Customs. Let's roll out the Betamax, Gabi.
Jarius Bondoc is a multi-awarded journalist known for his investigative reporting that exposes illegal activities in the government. His reports are compiled in his book titled Exposés, Investigative Reporting for Clean Government. Bondoc writes the column called Gotcha for the Philippine Star and Sapol for Filipino Star Ngayon.
Kuya Jarius, welcome to the program, my former boss.
Gandang araw. Good day to you. Cito.
Thank you very much for joining. Alam mo, nako po, naparusahan na nagpawi sila Gabi dahil hindi ka nila ko agad nakuha. But thankfully, you are able to join us this morning because I'm sure you are already aware that the recent appointment of a new Bureau of Customs Commissioner has created quite a stir and intrigues regarding the matter. Now, matanong ko lang, ano ba na pick up mo sa radar mo dahil ikaw yung kinatatakutan dyan sa customs regarding smugglers and corrupt officials?
Yeah. Well, newspapers have been reporting about the about a decade ago when Senator Panfilo Lacson mentioned the name of the present commissioner, who at that time was an intelligence officer at the customs, and at that time Senator Ping Lacson exposed him as one of those who are taking bribes for just to speed up their entry of smuggled goods or questionable goods, mainly misdeclared, underdeclared, or smuggled outright. And so that was being revived in the news lately. But what actually was strange was during the turnover from the past acting commissioner to the present commissioner, and no longer acting, there was an entry of a big bulk of refined sugar at the port of Batangas last week, while these events were unfolding. The the appointment of the new commissioner was on Wednesday, February 8th,
Yeah.
and then the swearing in was on Friday, February 10th. But on February 9, 260 cargo containers of 20-foot cargo containers of refined sugar was brought in, and these have no import papers. 260 cargo containers, equivalent to at 25 tons per container. That's about 6,500 tons. And based on customs estimates before, when they interdicted such smuggled sugar, every ton is worth 100,000 pesos. So 6,500 tons is equal to 650 million pesos of this type of smuggled sugar. Now, that was strange because the SRA, Sugar Regulatory Administration, as you reported earlier, approved the legal importation for this year of 440,000 tons only last Monday, and issued the order yesterday, Wednesday yesterday. So how can that amount of sugar be brought in and there is no registration? Before you can import sugar, you are supposed to have been registered and issued an allotment under the UP Law Center, University of the Philippines Law Center, on our Office for National Administrator of Registration. Now, there is no sugar order covering this one, that this importation, so it's deemed as smuggled.
Yeah. Is this just a matter of coincidence, Jarius? Because what's interesting is one of my tipsters called me and told me, Cito, you better check on a missing vessel in Zamboanga that is full of oil.
Yes.
Did you hear about that, Jarius?
Yes, there are murmurs that it was brought to Puerto Princesa, and that's where it's supposed to be held. That's what I heard. It was in the papers actually when it was interdicted, because the petroleum, the shipload of petroleum was being smuggled in, and it was brought to the Palawan, and there it is supposed to be guarded by the Coast Guard, where being held, and the Bureau of Customs. So how can it be? How can it suddenly sail away? So that's strange. Now, this being a coincidence, what I feel here, based on my investigation right now, is that sugar keeps coming in. Sugar has been smuggled sugar. Now, if this was being done under the past customs administration, then the present one should show exert some effort to make sure that this won't happen again. I am told that actually I got hold of a document that says that the Department of Agriculture Assistant Secretary for Inspectorate and Enforcement, James Layug, who used to be with the Customs, he issued a memo or requesting Customs to please look into this. This was on Tuesday, February 14. Please put an alert on these 260 cargo containers of refined sugar in the port of Batangas, because the cargo containers were hurriedly being moved out of the customs area and brought to private warehouses. Based on this, the customs allegedly, but there is no document yet, issued a WSD or a warrant for seizure and detention. But we don't know if this is true, because if there is a WSD, then the 260 containers are supposed to still be there at the port of Batangas. But some have been brought out already.
Okay, now, what is your assessment of the situation? Kasi several sources have told me that replacing Ruiz with Rubio has caused quite a stir, and there is rejoicing among the ex-corrupt men in customs, because they are confident that they can now work their way around the Bureau of Customs, and that things will be a lot easier. There will be bigger taras. I mean, these are all claims, no? But what gets my attention is this tara. If you would be patient with us, could you educate me and our viewers?
Yeah.
Ano ba yung tara? And then what are the forms of corruption in the Bureau of Customs that makes it so attractive that politicians want in, always put people there, even mga churches, mga religious groups, etc. Everybody wants a piece of the action.
Tara is bribe, basically. They just coined another term for it.
Ano ba ibig sabihin ng tara?
Tara is usually yung when you count to 5, every 5, diba, may score ka ilalagay 1, 2, 3, 4, tapos pa-X na gano'n is 5. Yeah. That's tara. Parang ito. Every time, say, a day passes by or a person passes by, you count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 slash.
Okay.
Then, pero ito sa kanila, they count the number of containers coming in to the port for customs inspection. Now the bribe there is 10,000. It used to be only half. It became 10,000 pesos per container, whether it's legal or illegal, just to be processed quickly. Even if it's a green lane or fast lane or super fast lane, you still have to give 10,000 pesos. But if you're smuggling something, you have to bribe them now at least 100,000 pesos or upwards per cargo container. Now, if we go back to the case of this smuggled sugar, this is worth 650 million, 260 cargo containers. Now, if a smuggler would earn that much, alisin niya yung puhunan niya where he got his cost of buying the contraband from Thailand. Well, he has a lot of money to share, a lot of bribes to share with the customs officials. And even in some cases, even officials of the Department of Agriculture, in the case of agricultural smuggling of animal meat or vegetables or seafood.
Okay, so yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Every year, 7.7 million cargo containers enter the country. Just imagine at 10,000 pesos per tara per container. This you add 7.7 million. You add 4 zeros to that. That's the kind of money that should go to the government. That's 70 billion, if I get my figures correct. That's
If the government
77
implemented simple, mabilisan na 10,000 na lang per container, wala nang bukasan, bahala na kayo, kikita ng ganong kalaking pera.
77 billion. Pero kung may or even 100,000, if it's 100,000, then it's 770 billion a year. Aba, 1 trillion na yan. Magkano ang natin? Ang national budget natin is 5.2, 5.3 trillion. Sa customs pa lang, we will be able to raise almost that amount already.
Yeah,
if only we have a clean customs bureau.
Yeah, I had Nonoy Oplas on the show yesterday, and he was saying that under Yogi Ruiz, the BOC actually had a miraculous accomplishment of more than 200 billion ba yun?
Yes, it rose from the previous year.
Yeah.
Kasi 2021 naman was a bad year also for imports.
Yeah.
2021, di ba? We suffered the worst economic decline since World War II.
Yeah.
So parang babawi pa lang tayo ngayon eh.
So kahit na if legitimate or turn a blind eye, the government can earn 770 billion.
Yeah, oo. Instead of giving away bribes. So it's so shocking. Yan pala kakalaki. That's how much we lose to corruption.
Okay, so we're only talking about the tara per container. Now, I was speaking to an ex-customs man, medyo mini-minister ko to the Lord, and he was sharing to me na in his past life, ang trabaho raw niya, binibisita naman niya yung mga brokers at saka yung mga shippers of representative, and his job was to collect their donation to the BOC. Sabi ko, anong donation? Alam mo na yun, kuya, lahat yan nagbibigay, hindi lang tara. Are you aware of this, Jarius?
Yes, that's another form of corruption. Yung monthly, monthly allowance to the big guys there, say the port collector, meaning that's the boss of customs in that port, no? And to the central office in the aduana, the so-called aduana in Manila. There are such collections as well. And then, and then there are also other rackets, like in the case of a recent incident that, not so recent, this happened September last year. In July, four times in July, and this was even a press release of the Bureau of Customs then, and the new administrator had just come in. 4 times in July, 2 companies brought in 22 cargo containers of Chinese yellow onion. So all of this because because the Secretary of Agriculture, President Bongbong Marcos, forbade the Bureau of Plant Industry from issuing sanitary and phytosanitary inspection certificates on such products, raw onions and raw garlic. This had to be confiscated immediately for reasons of to protect public health and agriculture. because there could be pests, there could be preservatives, there could be harmful materials. Um,
Okay, okay. I think we had a disconnection there with Sir Jarius Bondoc, columnist of the Philippine Star and host of the radio program. We'll go for a quick break to reconnect, but do stay with us because this is a very educational episode because now you are beginning to understand that the Philippine government, how much the Philippine government is losing, and explains why so many people in the top of the Philippine society can live in such a rich lifestyle. Hindi po lahat ng mayayaman at mayabang dyan malinis. Marami sa kanila, pati nasa business. Because you know, if you're a businessman, paying bribes, okay? Then you're not a businessman, you're just an operator. Okay, let's go for a quick break here on Agenda. Okay, thank you for bearing with us. We apologize for that slight delay and reconnection with our lecturer this morning, columnist and respected broadcaster, Jarius Bondoc. Sir Jarius, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. Morning again.
Okay, continuing with our conversation. Medyo pareho tayo senior citizen na. Nakalimutan ko na. But you were talking about
Yeah, the incident in Cagayan de Oro. Yes.
yeah, etc. Interdiction, etc.
Yeah. And the incident in Cagayan de Oro where they brought out of the port of Cagayan de Oro last year, September, interdicted, confiscated the yellow onion from China, and this was supposed to be condemned. In other words, steamrollered and buried, but instead they sold it they retailed it in Davao provinces, in Davao City, and in Surigao provinces for 600 pesos a kilo. And these onions had no sanitary and phytosanitary inspection certificates, and later on, they were found out to be some of the samples that were tested were found out to contain toxic substances and E. coli. In other words, at 600 pesos a kilo of smuggled onion, our people were fed dirty, unsanitary onions. And at the same time, there was a danger of infecting our farms with whatever pest or disease those onions had. So that's the danger of agricultural smuggling. But a lot of people are making money out of it. Bribes and illegal income from smuggling.
Allow me to cut in there,
Yes.
Jarius. No? Ladies and gentlemen, yung pong sinabi ni Kuya Jarius na yung mga sinampulan na smuggled onions in Cagayan, manifested E. coli. Yung E. coli po, bacteria. And that is generally transferred from waste, human
Yes.
waste, and
Animal waste.
polluted waters.
Yes.
Now, alam naman nyo na in many parts of China, they are very much into recycling water and human waste. And ayun, okay? So, yung E. coli po, pag pumasok yan sa system nyo, hindi kayo agad-agad tutumba. E. coli slowly eats up your intestines, weakens your body, etc. And after a few months or 3 months, that's when you start feeling the effects. Sa poultry po, sa manukan, I know that because we had an experience with contaminated water with E. coli coming from a nearby barangay. And ayun po, no, ito ay deep well water. After 3 months, dahan-dahang namatay yung mga manok namin. So, itong E. coli na sinasabi ni Jarius, okay, in connection with the smuggled onions, will kill people or make them very sick.
Yes. And even smuggled chicken, for instance, smuggled poultry parts and the pork. That's why we have to be very careful with our sources. And that's why all of this agricultural smuggling have been already deemed as economic sabotage, because you're in effect sabotaging our population, our agricultural industries, you know. But that is again the question with our Bureau of Customs. Why is it that you already issued this press release that these two companies brought in 22 cargo containers of banned onion 4 times in July, and yet up to now there is no charge of economic sabotage. And economic sabotage is defined as when you bring in agricultural products worth at least 1 million, when you smuggle in at least 1 million, that's already economic sabotage, or 10 million pesos worth of rice. But in this case, the 22 cargo containers of onion, each cargo container was valued by customs at 3 million pesos. So that means 66 million in all for the 22 cargo containers. So that's already economic sabotage. No charges have been filed.
Yeah,
So
well,
that's
I remember when I did the series on the Ferraris, the 86 smuggled Ferraris and the Porsches. I was really shocked and surprised. Ang pinag-initan nila yung isang tindahan dyan sa Katipunan Avenue who was never in my list of suspects, who was never reported to me, but all the other outlets that were reported as outlet sellers of those smuggled vehicles, they were never visited or raided by the BOC, and instead, parang tinimbrihan sila because suddenly all of those outlets, their vehicles disappeared.
Yes, naglinis in other words.
Naglinis.
But the story, inilihis naman. Your expose, inilihis nila sa iba. And that's their usual trick. That's their usual trick. And it's so abhorrent that they are able to do this and get away with it. Now, going back to what's happening now, the sugar, there is this theory, and it is supported by past experience. Some senators are saying that these 260 cargo containers that were brought in last week at the port of Batangas, they were already there waiting to be unloaded. In other words, smuggled na talaga. They were waiting for the 440,000 quota to be approved for this year, the sugar order number 6, so that they can sneak it in legally, they can legitimize it. But it's still illegitimate, it's still illegal because you have to pass through the process of publication, application for import, and then public bidding, and then among the traders, and then the allocation. You're supposed to receive your allocation of how many thousands of metric tons you can bring in. So you cannot do that. Now, Senator Lacson, a few years back, already exposed this racket in rice. Some crooks brought in rice in bulk, and then they were caught. Even the Bureau of Customs were identified, the officials there, and Senator Lacson brought up charges before the ombudsman. You know what? They were able to produce later, during the investigation, some sort of authorization that they were allowed to import. But this came later. But they got cleared.
Parang documents to follow.
Oh, but how can that be? You're supposed to go through a public process of bidding.
Okay.
Hindi yung basta pasok ka lang ng ganon.
Yeah, although the Lacson expose was 10 years ago, parang we are now, those who do not learn from the past are cursed to relive them. And we're now reliving that situation with the appointment of one of the persons whom Lacson accused. Now, nagsabi sa akin na paano pwede bang ma-appoint ang tao na may kaso sa ombudsman? Because apparently, someone had filed a case against Rubio with the ombudsman. And then, of course, Senator Lacson targeted him in a privileged speech. I mean, what does this say? Because another source of mine said that this appointment was signed in Tokyo, passed on to the president as he was going through so many papers, and he just assumed that it had been vetted by everyone, including the executive secretary. My source claims that it did not pass through the executive secretary, who would have already seen that there's a case in the ombudsman, and who would have already alerted the president, boss, tinira na yan ni Ping 10 years ago, baka sumabit tayo. What's your reaction to all of this?
We have seen the president, correct his mistakes in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Di ba he has reappointed Undersecretary Sebastian to the Department of Agriculture, the very
Correct.
same person who was accused of bypassing the president, and he was even admonished for it.
Mm-hmm.
But now he brought him back and made him undersecretary for rice. So if he knows how to correct his mistakes without having to go to town and say, I'm so sorry for this, and it already sends a message of hope for us na pwede pa pala ito. Kung nagkamali siya, he can make amends. So maybe he can review those papers. He can have the executive secretary do it. For the kasi in the case of the former executive secretary, papers prepared by the former executive secretary were reviewed by the presidential chief legal counsel, Juan Ponce Enrile, who advised the president to reject those documents. Diba? So, he needs advice.
Okay, now what can the president do in this situation? Because clearly naabutan siya because the executive secretary is not the only person, and usually CES nasa Malacanang going through the papers, but when the president is traveling in a huddle, ayan na yung cordon sanitaire at saka yung Wibulong are there, trying to get their agenda off the ground. What can the president do about this, or what lesson should the president learn from this? Because, okay, hindi pa naman, ang tawag noon, hindi pa naman convicted si Rubio of any particular crime, but the integrity for such a high office and sensitive position is paramount.
Well, maybe. Speaking of any appointee, not just the customs, maybe the president can learn from his uncle, former President Fidel Ramos, who never signed unless he was sure that there was CSW or complete staff work on any document, and he made sure that no document is fed to him in a hurry for him to sign. No, never. He has to see the initials of the person who did the CSW or complete staff work, and he had just about I think 8 persons doing that. So he would check for their initials or signatures before he went on. But he also found time to read all those documents. It's amazing. Twice when he was Secretary of National Defense, I'm talking of Fidel Ramos, and twice when he was president, he invited me to join him in his vehicle. And then when he was SMD, there was an old milk box between us full of documents with an in and out tray. And I was amazed. I asked him, are you going to read all of these documents? Yes, I have to. When he became president, natawa na lang ako because it was no longer an old milk box, a milk carton. Medyo maganda-ganda na, decente na, pang-presidente na. Pero the pile of documents were still there for him to read. And it's amazing that he would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and start reading the papers, reading official documents, and scrutinizing each one. And if he still had questions, he would write them down on red ink sa marginal notes.
Yes.
And then put them on the out tray, titingnan na uli nung staff niya. It's amazing. Maybe that was how that was his style. And that, if we will recall, those were some of the best years of our country. We came out of
Darkness.
Energy shortage, di ba?
Yeah, we came out of the age of darkness. Walang kuryente.
Energy shortage and successive coup attempts under
Okay.
the Korean
In this
administration.
situation, what advice would you give the current commissioner? Dadaan ba sa commission on appointments? Kasi up to last night, pinagtatalunan niya ng mga tao whether or not the Bureau of Customs Commissioner has to go through the CA.
Indeed, not from what I know, kasi cabinet members lang, and then candidates for ambassadorial positions, and candidates for promotion to full colonel or star rank in the military.
Apparently, that's up for discussion. I will have to really ask members of the CA about that. But Jarius, I'm going to have to end it at that because we have a new system going on. But thank you very much for your inputs. And above all, I pray for your good health. I pray for your protection from wicked people, and I pray that God would continue to bless your marriage and your family. And thank you for all the inputs you shared this morning.
Okay. God bless. God bless everyone.
Okay, thank you. That is the respected columnist and broadcaster Jarius Bondoc. Kung nagtataka po kayo bakit tawag ko boss, kasi Jarius was the first one to give me a break in journalism. Wala akong balak maging columnist, maging media, but it was him who called me out and said, Cito, you can do it. I want you to write a column for our paper. So, yun. That was the paper, the tabloid issue, many years ago. Okay. Now, let's end our program with our closing exhortation for the day. We exhort you to pray for breakthroughs, for salvation, reconciliation, healing, provision, and direction. Pray that in 2023, you would have faith to see God do the impossible in your life, in your family and community, in your church, nation, and the world. Please pray for us also here on Agenda and for me as I do my columns. Thank you very much for joining us, and please, God bless you, and please keep it here on One News.